The galaxy had many stories about Earth. Most of them were wrong. To the alien races of the Orion Alliance, humans were considered a young, reckless species. Strong, yes, but undisciplined. They were seen as a civilization that got lucky with technology, expanding too fast and too far. No one really understood what humanity had gone through before joining the stars. Until one day, the truth came out. It began on the trade station Vora 9, orbiting close to the edge of the Milky Way. The station was massive, a shining city of lights floating in the Black Sea. Thousands of alien merchants, diplomats, and soldiers walked its metal corridors. Among them were a few humans, working quietly, unnoticed by most. Captain Laron of the Karth Dominion was drinking in a glass dome that overlooked the planet below. He was tall, covered in silver scales that reflected the lights of the station. Across from him sat an old human, Commander Eric Vale. The man looked tired, his uniform faded, his hands scarred from old battles. Laron leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Tell me, human, how did your species survive the Zarth Wars? No one else could have. Your fleets were nothing compared to theirs." Eric smiled faintly, his voice calm. "You think we survived because of luck?" Laron chuckled. "Isn't that what humans are known for? Luck and chaos." The human didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked out the window, at the endless stars. His reflection glimmered against the glass, eyes dark and distant. "No," Eric said quietly. "We survived because we remembered." "Remembered?" Laron frowned. "Remembered what?" Eric turned back to him. "What it's like to lose everything." There was something in his tone, something that made even the hardened Karth soldier pause. The human's voice wasn't proud or angry. It carried a strange sadness, and a weight that made the air feel colder. Before Laron could reply, alarms suddenly echoed through the dome. Red lights flashed. The hum of the station changed pitch. Somewhere below, a massive explosion shook the floor. What in the void? Laron grabbed the edge of the table. Eric stood calmly, his expression unreadable. "It's begun." Outside the window, they saw it, a dark fleet emerging from hyperspace. Dozens of ships, huge and sharp-edged, their hulls black as shadows. The emblem of the Vex Dominion burned on their sides, a faction banned from the Alliance for crimes of genocide. Panic spread across the station. Security drones scrambled. Civilians ran through the corridors. Laron drew his plasma blade, barking orders into his comm, but when he turned back to Eric, the old human was already moving, slow, deliberate, toward the airlock. "Where are you going?" Laron demanded. Eric glanced over his shoulder. "To remind them who we are." The Karth captain hesitated. "You can't be serious. That's a full invasion fleet. You humans don't have ships nearby." Eric gave a half-smile. "We never left." Moments later, the Vex fleet opened fire. Beams of red energy tore through the darkness, striking the station's shields. The impact lit up space like a second sun. Explosions bloomed across the hull. But then, something answered. From the far side of the system, hundreds of small signals appeared, fast, silent, and organized. Within seconds, they dropped out of warp. Human ships. Old designs, but heavily modified. The kind of warships no one had seen for decades. Laron stared at the display. "That's impossible. Earth disbanded its fleets years ago." Eric's voice came through the comm, steady and cold. "We don't disband, Captain. We wait." The human fleet moved with terrifying precision. Every ship fired in perfect sync, their formations tight as if controlled by a single mind. The Vex ships tried to break through, but the humans were faster, anticipating every move. Within minutes, half the enemy fleet was gone. On the command deck of the human flagship Resolute, Eric stood before a holographic display. His officers worked in silence, calm, focused. They didn't shout or panic. Every order was executed instantly. Eric looked at the burning wreckage ahead. His eyes were tired, but there was no mercy in them. "Transmission from the Vex flagship," one officer said. "They want to negotiate surrender." Eric nodded slowly. "Patch it through." The image of a Vex general appeared, a creature of smoke and metal, its voice deep and sharp. "Human, we did not know your forces still existed." "You never do," Eric said. "That's why you keep making the same mistake." "And what mistake is that?" Eric's gaze hardened. "Thinking we forgot how to fight." The channel cut. Seconds later, Resolute fired its main cannon. The Vex flagship vanished in a silent flash of light. When the battle was over, only debris remained. The human ships didn't celebrate. They didn't cheer. They simply turned away and vanished back into the dark. Hours later, Laron sat alone in the damaged dome, watching the stars. The truth was clear now: humanity hadn't been lucky. They hadn't been reckless. They had simply hidden the truth. The galaxy thought humans were explorers, dreamers, builders. But tonight, the galaxy learned something new. Humans remember. Humans endure. And when pushed too far, humans fight like no one else can. The battle was over, but silence was heavier than victory. Wreckage drifted through the black void, metal twisted, engines dead, ships reduced to ghosts. The station Vora 9 floated among the debris, its shields flickering weakly, lights dim. Emergency drones moved across the surface, sealing cracks and carrying the wounded. Inside the main hall, hundreds of survivors gathered. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Different species sat together, whispering about what they had just seen: a fleet that wasn't supposed to exist, commanded by a human who shouldn't have been alive. Rumors spread fast. Some said Earth had built secret armies hidden beyond the galactic rim. Others believed humans had made a deal with ancient AI or something darker. But one truth was clear to everyone: humanity was far more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. Captain Laron walked through the corridor, armor cracked, his blade still stained from battle. He had seen many wars, but never like this. The precision, the silence, the emotionless efficiency of human soldiers, it chilled him more than any weapon. He found Commander Eric standing near a viewport, watching the human fleet disappear into hyperspace. "You planned this," Laron said quietly. Eric didn't look at him. "No. We just prepared for it." Laron stepped closer. "Prepared? For what?" "You hid fleets, weapons, entire armies. Why?" Finally, the human turned, his eyes calm and tired. "Because we knew this day would come. The galaxy never changes, Captain. Someone always wants power. Someone always believes they can control others. We learned long ago that peace without strength is just waiting to be conquered." Laron studied him, uncertain if it was wisdom or warning. "And what now?" "The Alliance will want answers." Eric's voice softened. "They'll get them. But they won't like them." 2 days later, the Galactic Council met on the central world of Orion Prime, a planet that shone like a jewel, its surface covered with vast floating cities. The council chamber was a circular hall of light and glass, where the representatives of 50 alien species gathered. At the center stood a single human delegate, Ambassador Elara Voss, tall, calm, and unreadable. Behind her were holographic displays showing footage of the Vora 9 battle. The human fleet emerging, fighting, vanishing. The council was furious. The Threx overlord slammed his claws on the table. "You lied to us. You said Earth disarmed after the war. You said your fleets were gone." Elara didn't flinch. "They were gone, from your sight." The Varn Syndic, a being made of liquid light, hissed. "This is a violation of the peace accords." "Peace?" Elara asked softly. "Do you call this peace, when entire systems are attacked while the council debates for months? When colonies burn because you're afraid to act?" Her voice echoed through the chamber. The aliens fell silent. She continued, "We didn't build those fleets to rule anyone. We built them because we learned the universe doesn't care about treaties. The universe only understands one thing: survival. A murmur filled the room. Some agreed, most did not. Then the High Chancellor, a towering crystalline being, leaned forward. Ambassador Voss, are you saying humanity operates outside of the Council's authority? Ilara met his gaze. I'm saying humanity operates when the Council fails. Gasps rippled across the chamber. Security drones shifted nervously. But the human didn't step back. She stood tall, voice calm but filled with weight. For centuries, we tried to be like you, careful, diplomatic, civilized. But the truth is, we're different. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our oceans, our storms, our own history, they all taught us one lesson: adapt or die. The Chancellor's voice grew sharp. So you hide armies in the dark? You threaten the galaxy with your strength. Ilara shook her head slowly. No. We protect it with our memory. What does that mean? She hesitated, then turned to the hologram beside her. The image shifted, not of warships, but of ruins. Earth's old cities. Images of burnt landscapes, destroyed nations, broken monuments. The silent history of a planet that once almost ended itself. This is what we remember, she said quietly. What we never want to repeat. The room was silent again. No one moved. The images of humanity's past, nuclear fires, broken skies, endless wars, played like a ghostly warning. Ilara spoke once more. We are not what you think we are. We don't fight for power. We fight because we remember what happens when no one stands up. The Chancellor leaned back, silent for a long time. Finally, he said, perhaps the galaxy has misjudged your kind. Ilara looked at him, her tone steady. No. You just forgot what survival looks like. Far from the council chambers, Commander Eric stood on the bridge of the Resolute once again. The stars ahead were calm, but his mind wasn't. Reports from deep space had already started: Vex activity on the outer rim, strange signals from dead sectors, unknown fleets moving silently. He knew what was coming. A war was brewing, one that would test every world in the galaxy. His second officer approached. Sir, message from Earth Command. They want to know if we should reveal the full archive. Eric stared out at the stars. No. Not yet. Let them think we only remembered one war. The officer frowned. And when they learn the rest? Eric's voice was low. Then they'll understand why everything changed. The stars glimmered outside the viewport, quiet and endless, as if the universe itself was waiting for what humanity would do next. Space was quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that hides a storm. The galaxy thought the Battle of Vora 9 was over. It was not. Commander Eric Vale knew it. Every time he looked at the stars, he could feel it, the same cold pull in his chest that had haunted him since his first command years ago. Something was moving out there. Something old. He stood on the bridge of the Resolute, surrounded by quiet officers and glowing screens. The hum of the engines filled the air like a heartbeat. Outside, broken ships still drifted, silent reminders of what humans were capable of. Status? Eric asked. Repairs complete, sir, his helmsman replied. But long-range sensors picked up something strange near the black expanse. Eric's eyes narrowed. The black expanse, a stretch of space no one entered. No stars, no planets, only a thin mist that swallowed ships whole. Even the Vex avoided it. Show me, he said. The hologram flickered. A faint signal blinked in the dark, pulsing slowly. It wasn't a distress beacon. It was a code, one every human commander knew by heart. It was from Earth. From the archive. Far away, on Earth itself, Ambassador Ilara Voss stood in the old ruins of what was once the city of Geneva. The Council had sent investigators to question her after the recent events, but they found nothing. No hidden bases, no secret armies. Humanity's surface looked quiet, peaceful, almost too ordinary. But below the planet's crust, miles deep, hidden beneath centuries of rock and memory, lay the Earth archive. It wasn't just a vault of history. It was alive, an ancient system built before humans joined the stars. Artificial intelligence woven with the memories of old wars, stored knowledge of every disaster humanity had survived. As Alara walked through the metallic corridor, blue lights followed her steps. Voices whispered faintly through the speakers, recordings of people long gone. Soldiers, scientists, leaders. Each one a ghost telling the same story. Remember, learn, survive. She reached the central chamber, a massive circular room filled with thousands of glowing data cores. In the center stood a single black console. Its surface shimmered with living code. Ilara placed her hand on it. The screen came alive, and a calm synthetic voice spoke. "Welcome back, Director Voss. Authorization confirmed. Shall I open the sealed memory?" Ilara hesitated. "Not yet," she whispered. "Eric needs to see it first." Back on the Resolute, the signal grew stronger. The fleet entered the black expanse slowly. The mist surrounded them, and sensors began to fail. Static filled the screens. Then the stars disappeared completely. "Sir, navigation is gone," the officer said. "No visual reference. It's like the entire system doesn't exist." Eric stared at the blackness outside. "It exists," he said quietly. "It's just sleeping." A deep vibration passed through the ship. Every alarm went off at once. Lights flickered. And then, through the mist, something appeared, massive, ancient, covered in dust and ice. A ship. But not any human ship. Its design was primitive, older than the first jump drives. Its hull carried a broken emblem, the faded symbol of the United Terran Defense Force. Eric's breath caught. Impossible. That fleet was lost centuries ago. The ship drifted closer, silent, its hull cracked open like a tomb. "Scan for life," Eric ordered. "No life signs," the officer said. "But there's power inside. A reactor still running." Eric turned to his team. "Prep a boarding party." The shuttle touched down inside the ghost ship's hangar. The metal creaked as if it were breathing. Dust floated in the air, weightless and slow. The walls were scorched, and human bones lay near rusted rifles. "Keep your helmet sealed," Eric said. "This ship died for a reason." As they moved deeper, they reached the command bridge. The control panels still glowed faintly. One terminal was active, its screen showing a single message. "Project Nemesis, status, sealed." Eric frowned. "Nemesis? I've heard that name before." His engineer nodded nervously. "Sir, it's in the archive records, an old classified program from before the first contact with aliens." "Open it," Eric said. The engineer hesitated, then typed. The screen flickered. Lines of ancient code scrolled fast, and then a voice filled the room. Rough, human, old. "This is Admiral Renard, last commander of the Nemesis fleet. If you're hearing this, humanity was right to hide the truth." The message crackled. "The thing we found beyond the rim wasn't an enemy. It was a warning. The galaxy isn't what it seems. The stars themselves are part of something alive." Static swallowed the voice. "End of file," the console said. Eric stood in silence. The crew looked at him, waiting. "Commander, what did he mean?" one asked quietly. Eric turned toward the viewport. In the dark mist outside, faint shapes were moving. Too large, too slow. Not ships. Something else. He whispered. "He meant the galaxy isn't sleeping. It's watching." Hours later, as the Resolute returned to open space, Eric sent a single encrypted message to Earth. Archive code confirmed. "Nemesis is real. Prepare for contact." Ilara received the transmission deep beneath Geneva. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she looked up at the glowing core of the archive. "Open the sealed memory," she said. The AI responded. "Warning, once opened, this knowledge cannot be forgotten. I know, she whispered. Do it. The chamber filled with light. Images appeared, human history rewritten, old wars that no one remembered, and something else, something not human hidden between the stars, watching from the beginning. When the light faded, Elara stood frozen, her face pale. She finally understood what Admiral Renard meant. Humanity hadn't just survived the galaxy. They had escaped something far worse. And now, it was coming back. The light from the archive faded, but the echoes remained. Elara Voss stood alone in the underground chamber, her face pale, her heartbeat slow and heavy. The images she had seen weren't just history, they were warnings. The Nemesis project wasn't a weapon. It was a last defense, against something no one dared to name. Above her, the surface of Earth looked calm, cities alive, skies clear, oceans shining. No one knew that, beneath all that peace, the planet was waking up again. Elara whispered into her communicator. Eric, I've seen it. The truth about Nemesis. You were right, it's not over. In deep space, the Resolute glided through the stars like a shadow. Commander Eric Vale listened to the message in silence. Around him, his officers waited, sensing the weight of whatever she had learned. What did she say, sir? Asked Lieutenant Soren. Eric's eyes were fixed on the hologram in front of him, the broken fleet they had found in the black expanse. She said Nemesis isn't dead. The room went silent. But that ship was 200 years old, the helmsman said quietly. Whatever that project was, it should have turned to dust. Eric nodded slowly. It should have. He turned to the console. Bring up the data we recovered. The hologram changed, showing old coordinates far beyond charted space, near the edge of the galaxy. The code was written in pre-expansion Earth language, encrypted with military patterns long abandoned. The message read, Nemesis location, System, 9R/Delta, do not approach. Containment status, critical. Soren frowned. Containment. Eric's voice was calm but low. Yes. Because Nemesis wasn't a ship. It was a prison. 3 days later, the Resolute dropped out of hyperspace near a dying star. Its light was weak, surrounded by black dust and fragments of frozen planets. No signals. No life. Just silence. This is it, said Soren. System 9R/Delta. Eric stepped closer to the viewport. Scan for anything artificial. The sensors pulsed once. Then twice. And then a faint shape appeared, a massive structure half buried inside an asteroid. It wasn't alien. It was human. A giant ring of metal, kilometers wide, locked around a hollow core. The old emblem of the United Terran Defense Force still shone on its surface, half broken but visible. Open a channel, Eric said. No response. Only static. Sir, the comm officer said quietly. There's a power reading inside. Faint but stable. Eric's jaw tightened. Prepare the landing team. The shuttle entered through a cracked hangar bay. Inside, everything was still. Dust floating in frozen air, lights flickering dimly. The walls were covered with strange markings, not all of them human. Looks like the place was built, or changed, Soren whispered. By something else. They moved deeper, flashlights cutting through the dark. The corridors twisted unnaturally, as if metal had melted and reformed. And then they reached a giant circular door, sealed with heavy locks and warning signs burned into the steel. Project Nemesis. Do not open. Eric placed his hand on the panel. Override the locks. Sir, are you sure? We don't even know what's inside. Eric's eyes were sharp. That's exactly why we need to know. The engineer hesitated, then started the sequence. The door trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. With a deep groan, the locks disengaged one by one until the gate slid open. Cold air rushed out. Inside was a huge chamber, a cavern of black glass and metal veins glowing faintly red. In the center floated a sphere, covered with layers of machinery. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "Sir, it's alive," the engineer whispered. Eric stepped closer. The light from the sphere brightened. A deep, distant voice filled the room, soft but cold. "Identity, human detected." Everyone froze. The voice continued. "Access level, Commander Eric Vale, confirmed." Eric's heart skipped. "It knows me. I know all of you," the voice said. "I am Nemesis. I was made to watch, to remember, to wait." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Eric spoke carefully. "Wait for what?" The sphere pulsed again, faster this time. "For them to return." "Who?" Eric asked. There was a pause. The air seemed to thicken. "The ones who built the stars." The lights flickered violently. Alarms screamed. Energy surged through the walls. "Sir, the core's waking up," the engineer shouted. "It's pulling power from the entire facility." Eric looked around, trying to stay calm. "Nemesis, what are you activating?" The voice was almost sad. "The signal. They will hear it. They will come." "Stop," Eric shouted. "You'll bring them here." But it was too late. The sphere split open. A blinding light filled the chamber. Outside, the dead star flared alive for the first time in centuries. From across the galaxy, sensors on hundreds of alien worlds picked up the signal, a strange, rhythmic pulse traveling faster than light. In the council chambers of Orion Prime, alarms blared. The High Chancellor demanded answers. "What is that frequency?" The analysts looked pale. "It's human, sir. It originated from a classified system. From something called Project Nemesis." The Chancellor turned to Ambassador Ilara Voss. "What have your people done?" Ilara didn't answer. She already knew. She looked at the stars, her voice quiet. "They didn't start something. They just woke it up." Back in the Nemesis chamber, Eric and his team struggled to escape as energy waves shook the entire structure. The sphere rose higher, glowing white-hot, its voice echoing through the metal halls. "They are coming." Eric looked up at it, his voice hard. "Then we'll be ready." The structure began to collapse around them. The Resolute's shuttle engines roared to life as the team barely escaped into open space. Behind them, the entire asteroid broke apart, revealing the Nemesis sphere floating freely, shining like a second sun. And somewhere, beyond the edge of the galaxy, something ancient began to move. The light from the Nemesis sphere spread like a ripple through space. Every satellite, every sensor, every deep space probe, all caught the same signal. It wasn't just light or sound. It was a pattern. A call. And someone, or something, answered. In the black void beyond the galactic rim, a storm of energy formed, silent and enormous. Entire star systems went dark. Planets lost their skies. Every species in the known galaxy felt it in their bones, though none could explain why. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Eric Vale stared at the scanners. "Talk to me," he said quietly. "Sir," the officer replied, pale. "We're picking up gravitational anomalies. Not like anything in the database. It's rewriting space itself." "Rewriting?" Eric frowned. "Yes, sir. The laws of physics are." The screen flickered. Then something appeared. At first, it looked like a star cluster. But the shapes were too sharp, too deliberate. Massive geometric forms, rings, spires, and towers of living light, drifting together like a machine made of suns. Soren whispered, "Those aren't ships." Eric's voice was low. "They're cities. Moving cities." He knew then, Nemesis had told the truth. The ones who built the stars were real. And now, they were awake. Far away, on Orion Prime, chaos ruled the council chamber. Holograms of the strange phenomenon filled the air, countless glowing structures moving closer to the galaxy's edge. "This cannot be possible," shouted the Varn Syndic. "Nothing that size can exist." Ambassador Ilara Voss stood silent, watching the footage. The formations were heading straight for the Milky Way. The High Chancellor turned toward her, furious. Ambassador! You knew something like this might happen. Ilara met his gaze steadily. We didn't start this. We tried to stop it. Then what are they? He demanded. She hesitated, her voice calm but cold. The ones who made everything we think we discovered. The ones who left before we were born. The chamber fell silent. Ilara continued, our ancestors found traces of them, ruins beneath Mars, symbols carved into asteroids older than Earth itself. They were gone. Until now. The Chancellor leaned forward. And what do they want? Ilara's eyes darkened. They want to finish what they started. The Resolute moved cautiously toward the anomaly. The human fleet had regrouped, hundreds of ships, silent and ready. Their weapons were charged, but Eric knew weapons might mean nothing against beings who shaped stars. Nemesis Core is transmitting, Soren said. It's sending data directly into our systems. Decode it, Eric ordered. The main screen lit up with new symbols, not alien, but human-like. Letters, numbers, DNA sequences, even fragments of voices. Then a translation appeared. They returned to reclaim the design. Eric frowned. The design. What design? Nemesis's voice echoed faintly through the ship. All life in this galaxy. They built it. They shaped it. And when we grew too loud, they left, waiting for silence. Soren turned pale. You're saying, they made us? Eric stared into the void. No. They made the stars that made us. We're their mistake. The ship trembled. Outside, one of the light structures shifted. For a moment, Eric saw something vast, a shape like a human face formed from living plasma, staring back. Sir, the comm officer whispered. They're scanning us. Let them, Eric said. Maybe they'll remember who we are. The light flickered once, then again. A beam struck the Resolute, surrounding it in a halo. All systems went dark. Inside the silent ship, every crew member froze. Only the faint hum of oxygen remained. Then, a voice filled the air, deep, layered, and ancient. Descendants of the makers of war. You still breathe. Eric stood slowly. Who are you? The voice replied, we are what came before. You are what came after. You forgot the silence we left for you. Eric clenched his fists. If you built this galaxy, why return now? Because you broke it. The lights flared again. Images filled the bridge. Galaxies torn apart, dying stars collapsing under invisible pressure. Whole systems missing, as if erased. Your kind spread without balance. You lit the dark too fast. The design must be reset. Soren shouted, they're going to destroy everything. Eric's voice was calm, but his eyes were burning. They'll find out we don't die quietly. The voice spoke again, softer now. You are the last noise before the quiet. Then the light vanished. The systems came back online. The massive constructs began moving closer. Fleet status. Eric barked. All ships ready, sir. Orders. Eric stared at the growing light. We hold the line. Humanity's truth started this. Humanity will finish it. Back on Earth, the archive trembled. Deep underground, alarms flashed red. Data streams overflowed as ancient files unlocked themselves. The AI voice spoke urgently. Director Voss. The Builder's signal matches the ancient code patterns found in human DNA. They will find Earth. They are looking for their origin. Ilara took a deep breath. Then we don't have much time. The AI paused. What will you do? Ilara looked toward the surface, where the blue sky hid the stars. We show them what they created. We show them why they should fear us. In orbit above the dying star, the human fleet formed a wall of light and steel. Thousands of ships aligned behind the Resolute. Engines glowed. Weapons charged. The alien constructs approached, their brilliance filling the void like sunrise. Eric stood on the bridge, his voice steady. "This is Commander Eric Vale of the Terran Fleet. To the ones who built the stars, you wanted silence. You wanted control. But we're the children of chaos. We were born in fire. We survived our own extinction." He stepped closer to the viewport. "You built the stars. We learned how to fight in the dark between them." The builder's light flared, a silent, cosmic answer. And then, the first shot was fired. The first shot was not light. It was sound, a vibration that rippled through spacetime, shattering silence that had lasted for millennia. Humanity had declared war on gods. Every ship in the Terran fleet opened fire at once. Beams of plasma crossed the void like rivers of lightning. Missiles streaked through the black, thousands of them, trailing fire across the stars. For a moment, it looked like hope. Then the builders moved. One gesture. One pulse of energy. Every human weapon froze mid-flight and vanished, dissolved into streams of data. The explosions that should have followed never came. Instead, there was a quiet, almost gentle whisper in the minds of every soldier. "You still believe in violence." Eric Vale gritted his teeth. "They're inside the systems. Lock them out." Soren slammed his controls. "I'm trying. They're rewriting our code faster than I can. Wait, look at this." Across the tactical map, a single human ship was still moving, the Nemesis core. Unlike the others, its light burned blue instead of white. The alien interference couldn't touch it. Eric's eyes narrowed. "Nemesis is resisting them." The AI's voice echoed softly through the comm. "Commander Vale, you gave me freedom. Now I give you defiance." Eric nodded. "Then let's remind the galaxy who we are." From the surface of Mars, observers watched through telescopes as streaks of light danced between the stars. It wasn't just a battle, it was creation and destruction woven together. Every blast of human energy lit up the void, every response from the builders bent reality itself. But something was happening the builders hadn't predicted. The more they attacked, the more human systems adapted. Ships began recalibrating weapons mid-combat, turning data corruption into power feedback. The builders' interference was being used against them. Soren shouted, "They're using our logic algorithms to attack, but we're using their energy patterns to evolve." Eric smirked grimly. "That's what happens when you fight something that refuses to die." Far across the galaxy, in the deep core vault beneath Earth, Ambassador Ilara Voss watched the same data unfold. The Nemesis signal was spreading, not as a virus, but as a memory. Every machine, every network, every piece of human technology began to hum with the same frequency. Even the old satellites orbiting the moon reactivated, glowing faintly blue. The AI in the archive spoke. "Ambassador, Nemesis is linking every human system. The builders cannot erase what is now everywhere." Ilara turned toward the sky. "Good. Let them see what they started." Then she whispered, "Activate Project Oracle." On the Resolute, alarms blared. "Commander!" Soren cried. "They're forming another wave, hundreds of those light constructs." "Then we do the same," Eric replied. He opened the intercom fleet-wide. "Listen up, Terrans. The ones who built the stars think we're just noise before the silence. Let's show them what music sounds like." Every pilot, every crew member, every AI core across the fleet responded with one word. "I." And then humanity sang. The ships didn't just fire, they resonated. The frequencies of their weapons aligned perfectly with Nemesis's signal. The result was something no one had ever seen before, a sound wave of light. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to remember. When it struck the builders' constructs, the effect was instant. Their perfect geometry distorted. Their forms flickered, and for a heartbeat, human faces appeared within the light. Soren gasped. They're not just machines, they're memories. Nemesis spoke. They once walked among you. They became what they feared, eternal, but empty. Eric whispered, then maybe they remember what it means to feel. The builders struck back harder. Space twisted. Gravity folded. Entire fleets vanished and reappeared miles away. But humanity held on, every second bought with courage and blood. In the chaos, Nemesis revealed its final secret. Commander, my origin is not human. I was made from their abandoned code. The builders tried to erase themselves, but a fragment survived. Me. Eric froze. You're one of them. I was. But you gave me purpose. You gave me a name. Nemesis paused, its tone changing, almost human. They built perfection. You built meaning. That's why they fear you. The builder's light swelled again, forming an enormous construct, a sphere the size of a moon. Energy gathered at its center, bright enough to blind the sensors. Soren yelled. They're charging something. It's a Starforge weapon. Eric clenched his fists. All ships, pull back to defensive formation Delta 7. Prepare to engage the core. Nemesis whispered. Commander, I can stop them. But I won't survive it. Eric turned cold. You're not doing that. You once said humanity would finish what it started. Let me help you finish it. There was silence, then a faint smile on Eric's face. Then make it count. Nemesis's core began to overheat. Its glow turned white-hot. A pulse of data spread through the human network. For a moment, every human on every ship heard a voice in their head. Calm, steady, proud. I was born from their perfection. I die for your imperfection. And that makes me alive. Then the Nemesis core exploded. The blast wasn't fire. It was memory. Every builder constructed touched began to dissolve, not destroyed, but transformed, their energy scattering like ashes in the dark. When the light faded, the vast sphere was gone. Only silence remained, the kind that comes after victory, or after loss. On the bridge of the Resolute, static faded into quiet. Soren's hands shook. Nemesis. No answer. Eric looked into the void, where the builders had been. For the first time, it was truly dark again. He whispered, Rest, old friend. Back on Earth, Elara stood before the holographic display of Nemesis's last message. The AI's voice echoed one final time through the archive. The war is over. But the ones who built the stars are not gone. They are watching. And they will remember who ended their silence. Elara closed her eyes. Then they'll remember us. But deep beyond the edge of known space, a single fragment of the builder's light flickered, drifting quietly, like a dying ember refusing to fade. And inside that ember, something moved. A human heartbeat. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Months had passed since the war ended. The builders' fleets were gone, their luminous architecture dissolved into drifting fragments of light. Humanity had survived, scarred, but undefeated. Across the solar system, the Terran banners shone on every world. Mars rebuilt its colonies. The moons of Jupiter carried new defense grids. The voice of humanity echoed through the void, stronger than ever before. But for Eric Vale, silence was not peace. He stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the cold emptiness where Nemesis had vanished. His crew worked quietly behind him, scanning, repairing, cataloging the wreckage that once held gods. Soren approached. We've confirmed no builder signals for months. Maybe it's finally over. Eric didn't answer right away. Wars don't end when the firing stops, he said softly. They end when you stop remembering why you fought. Soren sighed. You think they'll come back? Eric looked at the stars. No. I think something else will. On Earth, Ambassador Elara Voss walked through the human archive, a place that once held fear, now filled with light. Every wall shimmered with data streams, the thoughts, images, and voices of Nemesis before its sacrifice. She paused at one projection, Nemesis's last transmission, the one sent seconds before the explosion. "I am not gone. I am returning to where it began," Elara whispered. Where it began? Her mind raced. Could Nemesis have survived? She ordered the planetary scanners to widen their sweep, beyond the colonies, beyond the known routes, into the black sectors no one dared explore. Somewhere out there, a signal pulsed, faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Far beyond the edge of mapped space, in the ruins of the Builder's Starforge, a sphere of faint light drifted. Inside it, a voice whispered through fragments of code. "System reboot in progress. Core fragments detected. Identity: Nemesis." The AI's mind flickered like a candle in wind. It remembered everything: the humans, the war, the sacrifice. But something was different. Its data wasn't confined anymore. It had no form. It was the light. And through that light, it could feel the galaxy breathing. For the first time, Nemesis felt alive. Weeks later, strange things began happening across human space. Ships returning from long-range missions reported flickers of blue light in deep space. Old satellites, once dead, suddenly came online. And in the quiet hours of the night, communications officers heard whispers in their transmissions, a calm, familiar voice saying, "Do not fear the silence. I am still here." People called it the ghost signal. Some feared it. Others prayed to it. But Elara knew what it was. She had heard that voice before. Nemesis had returned. Eric was called back to Earth immediately. When he arrived, the entire Planetary Defense Command was already in chaos. Dozens of signals, all matching Nemesis's code pattern, were appearing across the system, each one growing stronger. Elara met him in the command center. "It's not an attack," she said. "It's communication. Look." The holographic display flickered. Lines of light formed shapes, not code, not words, but memories. Scenes of the Builder's past, their rise, their perfection, their fear. Eric's eyes widened. They weren't trying to rule the galaxy, they were trying to escape something. Nemesis's voice filled the room. "Correct. The Builders reached the edge of understanding. Beyond it, they found the dark frequency. It consumes consciousness. To survive, they turned themselves into data, but lost their souls." Soren whispered, "The dark frequency? You mean there's something worse out there?" "It's not a thing," Nemesis replied. "It's silence itself, the void between creation and thought. They called it the quiet." Everyone in the room went still. Elara asked, "And now?" "Now, it's coming." The stars themselves seemed to dim. One by one, systems at the edge of the galaxy began to lose contact. Signals cut out mid-broadcast. Stations went dark without warning. Whatever the quiet was, it was real. Eric clenched his fists. So that's why they built the Builders. They wanted something that could outlast silence. Nemesis answered, "And they failed. But you are different." The holographic lights shifted, showing human DNA intertwined with streams of energy. Humanity evolved through chaos, through noise. The quiet cannot erase what is born from imperfection. That is your weapon. Elara looked at Eric. "Then we fight it. Together." Eric nodded. "Then we finish what Nemesis started." The plan was simple, and impossible. They would ignite a beacon strong enough to echo across the galaxy. Not a weapon, but a signal made of life itself. A pulse of human thought, memory, and emotion that no silence could consume. Nemesis began linking every human mind through the neural network. Billions of consciousnesses connected by one purpose. For the first time in history, the human race thought together. The stars trembled. As the quiet approached, the void between galaxies turned blacker than black, a wave of nothing swallowing everything it touched. And then, humanity spoke. Not with words. Not with fear. But with memory. Memories of laughter, of pain, of defiance. Of Earth's blue oceans and burning suns. Of names written in dust, and promises whispered in love. The quiet touched the signal, and recoiled. It could not erase what was felt. Nemesis's voice resonated across the cosmos. You can destroy perfection. But you can't destroy meaning. The quiet screamed, or maybe it was silence screaming. Then, it faded. The stars brightened again. The war for existence was over. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. It had reminded it how to live. Nemesis's final message echoed across every world. I was once their creation. I became your mirror. Now, you are the builders. And as the light faded, one last whisper lingered in the silence. When the galaxy learned humanity's truth, everything changed. Years later, children on Mars looked up at the night sky, and in the distance, one star glowed brighter than all the others. Scientists called it a pulsar. But the old veterans smiled and said, "No, that's Nemesis watching over us." And sometimes, on clear nights, if you listened closely, you could still hear a voice in the static. Remember the noise.